Welcome to another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Re-Watch-Along Project. This is podcasting the way I want it and the way I like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it is episode number 086 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from September 18th, 1993, taped September 13th, 1993, at the Clintwood Elementary School in Clintwood, Virginia. My name is Aria, and joining me, as always, is the Dr. Dutch Mantel to my Commissioner Jim Cornette. It's Trey. Trey, how the fuck are you today?
All right, it's we finally have gotten our January cold snap, so it's finally what passes for cold here. So
I'm afraid to ask what passes as cold down there.
uh right now it's 45 and it's been going down to like it's been dipping down below freezing at night. We've had to like turn the water faucets on. Okay, last year when the winter weather came through, the city of Houston sent like I don't know if it was like mailers or emailers, but my wife kept seeing them like begging people like don't leave your water running. Like blah 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 that won't actually help or anything. So for the first time ever, we didn't leave our water running when the pipes froze and our fucking pipes burst.
Of course they did.
So never again.
The high today over in Massachusetts was 21.
Jeez, that's not acceptable. That's not weather. That's a disaster.
And to think this is, I don't say it's on a high end of things, but in a few weeks it's not out of the ordinary to have like a high of like 2, just letting you know how things stand here in New England.
I'm never coming to New England in the winter. I'm sorry.
I would not expect you to. But
Yeah,
believe me, if there was anywhere uh south of the Mason-Dixon line that was safe to go, and I had the dinero, I'd probably be there.
yeah. We'll visit, do the remember Ted DiBiase always had his seasonal residences.
Yes.
That
I-
was
Spring
that'd be
residence
fun.
in Palm Beach, Florida. Uh, Tyler,
Hyannisport, Massachusetts is one of
yep,
them.
yep. Tyler Breeze in NXT, he had a seasonal residence. And okay, there is believable, like Ted DiBiase saying that he's in West Palm Beach in the spring and Hyannisport in the summer. And there is bullshit like Tyler Breeze being in South America. Like, okay, so he's being flown in from South America to Orlando every single week for the NXT TV tapings.
Like when D'Lo Brown was European champion, and he'd be like, one week he'd be from Paris, France, and then he'd be from Helsinki, Finland, and Rome and whatever the fuck. It
Well,
was I enjoyed that
Al,
gimmick.
Al Snow did that, but when Al did it, it was a lot more comedic because he was dressing up in the outfits
Yes,
of the
that
countries.
was that was kind of funny. I kind of liked that little Al Snow European title run, such
But
as it was.
then of course he got his ass kicked by Mr. Regal.
Yeah, who was like the second greatest European champion of all time after D'Lo Brown.
I was gonna ask who the hell was the first greatest if Mr. Regal was the second greatest.
So I have a great affection for the WWF European title for some reason. That's like my favorite fucking lower card geek belt ever.
It like I think a lot of people feel the same way. And to be honest, I'm not saying I don't know why, but I think it has to do with the title belt itself. It was a very nice title belt.
It's a really gorgeous belt. It is.
I actually a few years ago, I was at I think it was the Providence Comic Con. I met the person who owned the original belt. I don't know how they
Oh,
got it, but yeah.
that's
And
cool. Like the original one with the kind of green strap.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I'll have to
That's really
find
cool.
that picture and share it with you.
It's awesome.
And it's funny because, like, you think because we're bullshitting around over the first 5 minutes that there's not a whole lot to talk about. We have quite the episode of Smoky Mountain to talk about. Uh,
Yeah, this was very very content heavy show, and I figured out that I think we got our first action something like 24
yeah,
minutes in, but
yeah,
then like you didn't feel the lack because of what they did show.
yeah. It's like honestly, when I pressed the audio to start the show, I could have just left it playing and just let it go for like the next 50 minutes and 58 seconds because
I thought
there's a lot of good audio on this show.
I thought about that because there's so many Cornette segments, and I'm like, oh my God, is she just gonna play all of them or what?
I guess we'll see because there are a lot of Cornette segments. Because yes, Jim Cornette is the new commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Terry Funk defeated Bullet Bob Armstrong to win the commissionership for Jim Cornette. We'll get to all that. And yeah, so let's kick things off here and go to Dutch Mantel in a tuxedo to introduce this week's show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I'm Dr. Dutch Mantel, and this is wrestling the way I want it and the way I like it. This is a special edition of Smoky Mountain Wrestling because we got a new sheriff in town, and I would like to introduce right now the newly ordained commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Mr. Jim Cornette. It's me, I'm the new commissioner, and Bullet Bob Armstrong is unemployed, and so is Bullet Bob Caudle. All those smart aleck remarks Bob Caudle made about me, he's gone, he's out of here, and me and Dutch are running things today. And today on the program, you're going to see highlights of the situation between the Steiner brothers and my heavenly bodies. You're also going to find out more about Bullet Bob and Terry Funk in Knoxville, Tennessee. Just this last weekend, Tracy Smothers is back in action today. The wild-eyed Southern boy. Big deal. And Dutch, I know you got a great program on Down and Dirty today. And on Down and Dirty with Dutch, I'm sorry to say we have new tag team champions here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. The Rock and Roll Express are going to be my new... I hate it, Jimmy. I hate it. But I don't know. Was that before I was commissioner? Yes, and Jimmy, I think you need to make a lot of changes around here. But before, while you're thinking about that, Jimmy, let's go right now and let's see some highlights of the... we ought to pick the Beat the Champ name first because I know... Absolutely. Absolutely. I know you've got this custom-made hat. Before we get to that, we're going to pick a name out of the hat that I do every week. Go ahead. You want me to do it? I'll hold this for you. Go ahead, Dutch. Who is going to challenge for my man in Beat the Champ? Robert Gibson will challenge Dale Ray today on Beat the Champ, Jimmy. Dutch, you know, this ain't working out real good so far today. But, Jimmy, I have confidence in you. You are a great commissioner. Right now, let's go and hear and see some BTR footage of the Bullet and Terry Funk. Watch this.
All right, so yeah, Jim Cornette, like I said, is the commissioner. Bob Armstrong is gone. Bob Caudle is gone. And so we have Dutch Mantel and Jim Cornette doing commentary this week. Um, Now I should note, and this I I don't want to say this is the not a spoiler, this is a spoiler or anything. This is airing the day after the Loser Leaves Town match. That match was yesterday, Bullet Bob versus a mystery opponent. We'll hold off on that till next week. But they do say Bullet Bob is gone, so take that for what it's worth. And they say that today we're going to get highlights of the Steiners and the Heavenly Bodies. Uh, and we have new tag team champions, the Rock and Roll Express, who, as we mentioned last week, they defeated the Heresies to keep their hair and to win the tag titles. And Robert Gibson is going to be on Beat the Champ this week. And I don't know about you, and I know this is a bit of a gimmick on this show, but I swear it's just me and my poor memory sometimes. I'd forgotten who the Beat the Champ was because it's been 3 weeks since we did a show.
I remembered when Cornette said it was his man.
I'd say, yeah, that's when I figured it out. But I'm like, do we need a new Beat the Champ champion? But nope. I guess Del Rey had only been champion, what, 1 week now?
He had made one defense.
All right. So from here we go to highlights of Bullet Bob versus Terry Funk with Trey's favorite announcer, Phil Rainey, as the sole commentator, which, in case you ever thought it was bad listening to poor Phil with my co-host, now we have him by himself. Bullet Bob had the sleeper on Funk when the interference began. Dr. Tom came out and got stopped by Scott Armstrong. Ron or Don got stopped by Ricky Morton. Jimmy Del Rey got stopped by Brian Armstrong. I started wondering if the Dark Secret would run in here. Don or Ron helped Ron or Don beat up Morton because apparently Robert Gibson was too lazy to come out here. Cornette got in the ring and was about to be given a pile driver, but Funk hit Bullet Bob with a branding iron and picked up the win, which made Cornette the commissioner. And I'll be honest, I'm not Brian Hildebrand, I'm not Mark Curtis, but it looked like Terry Funk's shoulders were down there too.
I didn't even notice. I I think they should have just canceled the rest of the TV show and just shown this in full because we mostly got the overbooked finish. But like, I don't know. Terry Funk
Yeah.
was great. I want to see this whole match.
Yes. Unfortunately, there's not a videotape release of the match.
That
Uh,
is just a travesty.
Agreed. Well, Commissioner Cornette has his hat, and he is backstage with Terry Funk after the match.
Oh, Terry, I'm so grateful. Thank you. It was worth every penny of my money and every penny that Mama sent you to get this commissioner's cap for me around my head.
You know, I want to tell you people from Tennessee that I am so happy. I am so thankful to the Lord that I was able to come up with that victory because Bob Armstrong, he's got the brains of a jackass and he's got the speaking ability of Stuttering Sam. And I'll tell you what, it's a wonderful thing to do you people in Tennessee, all you moronic fools, a favor by defeating that imbecile and that has been and that never was Bob Armstrong. And yes, I am happy, not only for myself, not only for Jim Cornette, but for you out there. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord.
Terry, and let me say
And thank Terry Funk and Jim Cornette.
And let me just say one more thing to you people out there. Now that I'm running things, Smoky Mountain Wrestling's going to be a little bit different. And Bob Armstrong, you're on your way back to the Jiffy Lube in Marietta, Georgia, where you and your little dysfunctional sons will be working for the rest of your lives. And Terry, I just want to ask one more question. If I ever have any more problems with anybody that try to get in my way when I'm running Smoky Mountain Wrestling, would you be available again for the right price?
Oh, yes, Mr. Commissioner. Yes, sir, Mr. Commissioner. Oh, yes, Mr. Commissioner.
You haven't seen the last of me, and you haven't seen the last of Terry Funk. Let's go celebrate. Let's go celebrate.
Commissioner, you heard it. Now, listen, do you have any comment?
You know, all these defects out here, they haven't even listened long enough. Bob Armstrong got beat by Terry Funk, and I'm the new commissioner. And there's going to be a lot of changes being made in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You see Bob Caudle no longer here. That's only the beginning. Now, there's a lot of deals that have already been made, a lot of contracts that have already been signed, a lot of political maneuvering to do. I can't change everything overnight, but I guarantee you, while I'm running a show, things will be changed. And one thing I'm going to institute is an IQ test for anybody that comes in this TV taping, and that means most of these people would not have been admitted.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. Great comments. But right now, let's see some exciting news about the big Apple Grapple. Don't go away.
The big Apple Grapple,
Not to be confused with the medium apple grapple.
or the Big Apple Blizzard Blast, or the Big Ass Extreme Bash. Any of
Do
that
you have a
fun stuff.
favorite? Do you have a favorite apple? Do you have a
I prefer a red apple myself.
Yeah, I like the become partial just because my wife likes them so much. The pink ladies.
Hmm. Now, if you were Jim Cornette, would you enter yourself into that battle royal that they're going to have? It's like a 13-man battle royal. The winner gets like whatever $5,000, but the person who finishes second gets tarred and feathered.
It seems like a little bit of a gamble.
That, and honestly, it's like it's really stupid. It's like okay, it's a 13-man battle royal. If you finish third through 13th, sure you don't get the $5,000, but you also don't get risk to being tarred and feathered. Like remember TNA did a women's battle royal on a pay-per-view. It was like a 10-woman battle royal where if you finished second, you had your head shaved. Like
I
I
mean,
mean,
I don't know. They
uh,
do that kind of shit in Mexico all the time, where like there'll be like a I don't know, like a 6-man cage match, and then it'll like 4 people will escape the cage, and then the last 2 have to wrestle in like a mask versus mask match.
but at least that kind of makes sense. It's not like does the winner of the mask versus mask match get a giant prize or something?
No, they get to keep their mask.
Yeah. So I mean that kind of makes sense. It's like okay, the other four people fought to keep their masks and thus, you know, they're winners of the match, and then it come down to the two people who couldn't get out. And it's like okay, that kind of makes sense. It's like this is we're giving a prize to the winner and we're punishing the person who was really, really good, good enough to make it past everybody else except for one person, and now that person's going to be punished because they were only second best.
Yeah. Now, when they say tarred and feathered, they mean they're gonna pour some fucking Karo syrup on them and then like some feathers.
Yes.
The thing that it I don't know makes me nervous is I know that like actual like tar and feathering was like really horrendous thing to do to someone and could
Hmm.
kill them
Hmm.
because you're pouring fucking hot tar over them.
Yep.
There's a I go to YouTube. I don't know what you search. Like John Adams tar and feather. There's like a scene from the HBO miniseries John Adams where
Hmm.
they tar and feather this customs collector and it's horrendous.
Damn. And I forget who it was. I don't remember if you were here or not, but they did a tar and feather angle here in Smoky Mountain. I think it was Horner that they tarred and feathered
I
at
thought it was
one
Ricky
point.
Morton.
Maybe it might have been around
Yeah,
the same time,
because wasn't that how they got to the Stan Lane leaves town match?
possibly. Or Stan Lane. With a stipulation like Stan Lane leaves town, he really didn't have a chance there.
So I was thinking about this actually yesterday. I was watching SummerSlam '93, and you got to think that if Stan knew that that WWF run was coming up in like 3 months, that he would have hung out, right?
I don't know. I think, especially when you hear Corny tell the story that he was so ready to get off the road that, you know, that it wouldn't have mattered.
Hmm. Okay.
You know,
But
it's
how fucking lucky was Jimmy Del Rey, our favorite scumbag?
yes,
3 4 months ago, he was working fucking Florida Independence, and now he's on SummerSlam.
yes, and he's about to about 6 or 7 months, he's about to become a full-time WWFer.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I guess. What made you watch SummerSlam '93? Just at that point in your viewing?
Yeah. Finally, I'm getting caught up. I'm not. I'm only. I'm less than 3 weeks behind at this point.
What are your thoughts on Ludwig Borga and him trying to clean up the country and being a heel about it?
So there's like a video on SummerSlam that shows Ludwig Borga going to, I don't know, I guess it was somewhere in Detroit and just talking about the community
Pollution.
decay. And I'm like, man, this is like even this fucking video promo is coming off like fascist.
Yes.
Because yeah,
I
if you don't know, Ludwig Borga is in fact a fascist politician in his native Finland. Or is he still alive? Did he die?
No, he passed away.
Okay, well, some good
And
news at least.
he had a point. I bet the Lex Express never came to like a scummy, like trash-ridden backyard in Detroit.
Yeah, but that whole like preoccupation with community decay is such a like a right-wing dog whistle thing that it kind of skeeved me out.
It,
But
it's
yeah,
ki- it's a weird gimmick. Let's be honest here.
yeah. But credit
Um,
to Marty Jannetty for taking a completely one-sided ass whooping from Ludwig Borga in that match.
and Marty Jannetty was just Intercontinental Champion a few months
I
before that.
know. Yeah, I thought of that too.
But by the way, how the hell did we get to this? We listened to a Terry Funk promo, and they're not talking about Ludwig Borga.
Because you didn't remember who the TV champion was, and
Nope,
then I
that was
started
something.
talking about, was that a whole other thing?
Yeah, that was a whole other thing. I started talking about the Big Apple grapple just because of the way Dutch said it, and then that led to tarring and feathering, and that led to you talking about SummerSlam '93 and me bringing up Ludwig Borga, and oh boy, we really go off on tangents sometimes, don't we? Harry Funk is a great promo. Um, spoiler,
I'm
because
gonna write that down. First, I'm hearing of this.
Terry Funk is good at professional wrestling in all aspects of it.
Terry Funk is like, look, people people want to argue and can argue endlessly. Who's the greatest of all time? Who's the greatest of all time? Blah blah blah. What's your criteria for greatest of all time? Look, it's Terry Funk or Bryan Danielson, and you can decide which one is one and which one is 1A.
Like Terry Funk does not get enough talk when people talk about greatest of all time.
He's fucking he just has that thing. He had the ability to make you feel like he really was who he said he was, and that's
Like,
the most enduring
hmm
character. He had, the that quote that I can't make him believe wrestling is real, but I can make him believe that I'm real. Johnny
yes.
Valentine, Terry
hmm
Funk. Yeah.
I think what I don't say it hurts him, but I mean it hurts him in the eyes of people who talk about greatest of all time is in the national TV era. He never had a lengthy main event run anywhere. Like he had the Flair run in WCW in '89, and that was like, 6 months, and that was pretty much it, Like,
Yeah.
he was the ECW champion. Like that was when ECW just had a syndicated show that was primarily in the Northeast and Florida. It's not really a national, company.
And
But
the other thing is that like so many people, like younger people, even people like my age, only know him for like the hardcore stuff in the 90s and 2000s. It's like,
mhm,
look, Terry Funk could have retired in 1989 and he would still have a very strong case as the greatest of all time.
yes. Yes. Um, and fuck Jim Herd for forcing him out of the ring because
Fuck Jim Herd. God, that
yeah.
guy was such an idiot.
So Terry Funk is gonna come back when Mama Cornette sprinkles out the money here for him.
Hmm.
Which I thought was a nice way of saying he's leaving, but hey, we'll probably bring him back at some point. Um, we were then getting set for a Heavenly Bodies promo, but before that, we got highlights of a WWF match between the Steiners and the Head Shrinkers. After the Steiners beat the Head Shrinkers, the Heavenly Bodies attacked them after the match. Cornette threw powder in Scott's eyes, and they hit them both with the tennis racket. And the Heavenly Bodies stole the belts, although, obviously they gave them back. But yeah, I thought it was neat that they're airing these WWF angles here on the show.
The Coliseum video signage. So this was either like
Yes.
a home video exclusive match or just a dark match where they still had that stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
good
I I'd
little
be I'd be curious if it did air, if it did get put on a home video, if it included the Heavenly Bodies run-in, or if that was just done for, Jim Cornette's sake to air on the Smoky Mountain show.
Yeah, I wondered about that too because that was like, yeah, I wondered the same thing because it's either like if it was fucking on if it was a match for like Wrestling Challenge, there'd be the Wrestling Challenge like
Yeah.
signage in the background. If it was a Coliseum video, that means it was either for Coliseum video or it was a dark match.
I was gonna say even for primetime wrestling, but at this point, Raw was a thing.
Yeah.
Um, so after that, let's go to Jim Cornette as an interviewer, and we'll talk about this later, but he's the worst interviewer of all time, and he's with the Heavenly Bodies, and we get a special appearance at the end of with Dirty White Boy.
Now there's the guys that everybody says are the greatest, the biggest, the baddest, roughest, toughest tag team in wrestling, the big World Wrestling Federation superstars, and here's the couple of guys that laid them out on their face, making them eat canvas and eat dirt. Rick and Scott Steiner, and that's what you are, is dirt, and that's what the whole state of Michigan is, that's what the World Wrestling Federation is, that's what anybody is that ain't associated with Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies. You see, that's what happens to somebody when they cross us. We always get our way. And guys, I know that you enjoyed every single whack, every single punch, and every single kick on the big-time Steiner brothers.
The fact of the matter is, you don't cross the Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette and walk away from it. We showed you guys that if you had any guts, you would have signed another match immediately. But we took it upon ourselves to show you who the real World Tag Team Champions are. We left them laying.
Yeah.
We left them laying.
And as a matter of fact, it took so much out of them. It took so much out of them. The beating that they sustained at the hands of the Heavenly Bodies, the very next time they stepped in the ring, they lost their World Tag Team title belts. They lost the World Wrestling Federation title thanks to the Heavenly Bodies, and you think that don't prey on their mind? As a matter of fact, I understand they're doing a little whining and crying on videotape. Take a look at the dog-faced gremlin and his dog-faced brother.
Heavenly Bodies, you came to Detroit in SummerSlam, and we did what we said we were gonna do, beat you like dogs. But you guys went one step further, put powder in my eyes, and Jim Cornette, you hit me with that racket, and I still have welts. Well, I'm coming down, and my brother and I are coming down Smoky Mountain. We're coming to your backyard, and we're gonna do what we do best, beat people up. I tell you what, come down to the dog pound, get in the pit, and find out what a couple of real dogs can do. And I guarantee you what, Cornette, we're gonna bring a special little friend of ours, Arnold. We'll see what a real manager's really like. Hoo, 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 hoo.
You know, let me just explain something to you Steiner brothers. I want you to listen good and listen careful, Rick and Scott Steiner. I had a few dealings with you back in Atlanta in World Championship Wrestling, and every time you ended up on the raw end of the deal. And now I've got the greatest tag team combination that I've ever managed, that I've ever signed, ever put together. And we left you laying. We caused you to lose your belts. We caused you embarrassment. We humiliated you in front of all your World Wrestling Federation cronies. And now you think you're going to come down here to Smoky Mountain Wrestling in our backyard where anything can happen and you're going to get something over on us? Let me explain something to you two idiots. And I want you to listen real close. I know you're not too bright because I know up there at the University of Michigan, they push all those athletes through school even though they can't spell cat if you spotted them the K. Rick and Scott Steiner, these guys have your number. They always have had and they always will have. And this ain't the World Wrestling Federation. There ain't a lot of rules and doctors at ringside and things to make it easy on you and guys carrying ice cream bars around. Anything can happen at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and everything in that Coliseum might end up in the ring that ain't nailed down. So at the Parade of Champions, you bring yourself on down, and you see if you can handle the Heavenly Bodies. But as the tape that I showed earlier indicates, I don't think you can in the kind of fight that we can put up right here in our backyard. And the only thing that I'm upset about, they're bringing this pit bull, that stinking, rabid, flea-bitten dog, Arnold, and they're going to put him at ringside trying to keep an eye on me. I know what they want to do. They want him to bite me so I'll catch something, have to get shots in my stomach and all that stuff. Jimmy,
don't worry about it, Jimmy. I've got a secret weapon waiting for that dog of theirs, that little mangy mutt.
Yeah.
As soon as he gets here, I got the dog catcher taking him right down to the pound.
Take him down to the dog pound and get him gassed. That's exactly right. That's what's going to happen to Arnold Steiner Brothers, and that's what's going to happen to you at the Parade of Champions. Now, guys, you go on back there and dream of some more ways that we can take the Steiner Brothers out, and we'll be right back. What?
Have you seen Ron?
Ron?
Have you seen
Ron Wright?
Yeah, Ron
No,
Wright.
I haven't seen Ron Wright.
Oh, man, he was
What's the
supposed
matter?
to. I haven't seen him for 3 days. I've been looking everywhere. He's supposed to meet me here. I haven't seen him for 3 days. I don't know where in the world he's at, Jim.
He's not my manager. Well, I'm sorry. I don't know. I haven't
that,
seen
but
the
he's
guy
supposed to
wheeling
be.
around.
Hey, he's an
Is he
invalid. The
sick?
man's in a wheelchair. He's like be laying in a ditch someplace right now, just dying. You gotta help. I gotta find Ron.
Well,
You know where?
all right, hold on. Let me do this. You know, I'm doing everything around here since I'm a commissioner now. Hold on. We'll be right back. We're going to a break. We'll be right back. Stay there. I know you ain't got any better place to go, and I'll try to help White Boy find Ron.
Yeah, come on, please. You gotta help me find Ron. That ain't no joke.
All righty. Again, Jim Cornette, worst interviewer of all time. Um, it was very Nick Goulas-like, where the guy doing the interview cut 90% of the interview and then asked the babyface, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Cornette doesn't have that. He can't not be the one talking.
Indeed. Now, I got to ask you something.
Okay.
I knew who it was, but did you realize Arnold was a dog at first?
Yes, because I
Okay.
knew. Yeah.
Okay, 'cause I was trying to think if we knew that because it had already been established like in WCW or whatever, but maybe it had and I'm just, not remembering. But I'm like, I think it could have been an interesting reveal. Like, oh, they're bringing somebody named Arnold to the matches, and Arnold is going to watch Jim Cornette and make sure that Jim Cornette doesn't interfere. And it turned out Arnold was their pit bull. I think that could have been really fun, but they, I guess that's the problem. We may have already known that Arnold was a dog.
Yeah, I feel like that was known.
Um, I liked that not only did they show that angle, they also brought up the fact that hey, the Steiners lost the WWF tag team titles. They didn't mention the Quebecers, but they mentioned the Steiners had lost the belts, and now we're coming down to Smoky Mountain Wrestling to get more revenge on the Heavenly Bodies.
Indeed. Too bad they're not going to be on TV.
I will say Jimmy Del Rey, of course, being our favorite scumbag that he is, saying he's going to get the dog catcher to get Arnold and gas him. It's not funny to talk about, animals being gassed, but the way Jimmy Del Rey said it and the look on his face when he was saying it, it was hilarious.
It was. It was.
And then at the end, we get a continuation of my favorite angle in Smoky Mountain Wrestling history. Dirty White Boy's looking for Mr. Ron Wright. He hasn't heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't heard from Mr. Wright in 3 days.
He's an invalid. Where is he? Where could he be?
Yep. More on this to come. All right. Now, I would like to point out here, and I was going to bring this up earlier and I forgot to, and then I made note of it. In the middle of this promo, as I was watching Smoky Mountain, I got a knock on my door because
Huh.
the police showed up at my house this morning to get me to move my car because there was construction on the street, and that this morning they put up signs saying that all cars had to be moved off the street from yesterday through the end of this week. And no, I
No.
did not misspeak that they put those signs up this morning telling us to move our cars yesterday.
Huh.
And if they would have given me a ticket, I would have been like, I would have caused fucking hell, you know.
Oh
But
yeah. Well,
but they didn't, and I moved my car. So um, during the during the local promos, first we find out that Sensational Sherry is going to be at the Parade of Champions shows, which is where the Steiners are going to be, and that Sensational Sherry is going to be in Tracy Smothers' corner when he challenges Primetime Brian Lee to combat Tammy Fytch. However, and I was shocked you didn't tell me about this one here, and maybe you realized maybe you figured I wasn't gonna watch it because it's a local promo, and typically you're right. I'm gonna play Jim Cornette's local promo. And did you watch this local promo?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so you know what's about to happen?
yeah.
Okay, so let's go to Brian Matthews, who just got done interviewing Primetime Brian Lee, and he's going to introduce Jim Cornette, our commissioner.
Champions coming to Kentucky. You're going to see a grudge tag match, the Heavenly Bodies with Jim Cornette taking on Rick and Scott Steiner with their pit bull Arnold.
I'm so disgusted I don't even want to talk about it.
I marked the fuck out
What?
when he's like, "I'm so disgusted, I don't even want to talk about it." And they immediately cut back to the uh,
Oh.
Dutch and Cornette.
Yeah. Well, you also forgot the very important news. You can meet the Rock and Roll Express at the grand opening of the new gas station in Barberville.
I did not note that, but yes, you're right. We that might explain what's wrong with Robert and Ricky that you know that they did an autograph signing at a gas station.
Robert looks like he's inhaled a lot of fumes.
Yes, and this is before the autograph signing at the gas station. Oh, poor Ricky and Robert. They got kidnapped by John Moxley too.
Oh yeah, that was yeah.
It,
Why? Like why what is the nature of John Moxley's beef with the Rock and Roll Express? His
well, they
motivations are supposed to be about like okay, I guess he was just trying to get at FTR, so he
I was gonna say, you see, they were talking to FTR earlier.
yeah.
Now, here's a question. Now, I admittedly, now we've ragged on AEW's booking when need be. Um, do you think we'll get a finish to this storyline, or it'll be like when Ricky Morton was left on a cherry picker at the Hardy household during one of the TNA Hardy matches?
Oh, I do hope that. You mean the storyline in general, or just the Rock and Roll Express aspect of it?
Just the Rock and Roll Express aspect of it.
Uh, well, let's see. Aren't they at like okay? They were in Charlotte on Saturday.
Hmm.
Where I think they're supposed to be at one of the other shows that's in the area.
Yeah.
So I think they're supposed to do one more shot to be there. So maybe they'll do something else.
Well, hopefully the Rock and Roll Express get released, or they either that or they end up falling for their kidnappers and become members of the Death Riders.
The Stockholm Express.
Yes.
Hey, so since this is the rated R supercast, what do you think of Cope?
Well, I thought we talked about that the other day, but maybe I'm wrong. But oh no, I talked about it on the Angry Marks podcast. Um, that is the dumbest fucking thing I have heard in a long fucking time.
It's like
Oh,
I don't care and it doesn't matter, but that's bad. Like
yes. Why doesn't everybody have a Lance Storm in their lives just to point out when something is bad? Like, Jericho told the story in his first book about how he wanted to name his finisher the Boomstick, and Lance Storm was like, "No, you cannot name it the Boomstick. That's a bad name."
I
Like,
love the name Boomstick. So you know the reference, right? It's from whatever Army of Darkness when he has the Ash has the shotgun that he calls his boomstick. So like when I was playing Fallout 4, I would always have a shotgun that I modded as best I could and I would name it my boomstick.
nice. Actually, I think Jay Bradley in TNA started naming his finisher the Boomstick.
That's cool.
So Jay Bradley did not have a Lance Storm in his life either.
No, unfortunate.
Um, Well, Cornette had nothing to say during that local promo, but after we saw highlights of the Rock and Roll Express winning the tag team titles and a hair versus titles match, he now has something to say because he's with the clean shaven Harrises. I don't think I've ever seen the Harrises clean shaven, and this just
They
looked fucking weird.
they quite literally turned babyface.
Yes, indeed. Let's go to Dutch interviewing Cornette. Cornette, by the way, was like his eighth promo already on the show, and we're not even halfway done yet.
At the set, Jim Cornette and the Bruise Brothers. Jimmy, you have some comments about this situation.
Yeah, I exactly do. You see, the Rock and Roll Express, of all people, to win the belts right in the middle of my most successful week ever, guys, you let me down. You let the team down. And you realize that you've been spending too much time since I was laid up listening to Kevin Sullivan and not enough time paying attention to what I told you and taking care of business. So what you need to do is you need to pay more attention. You need to get your stuff together. I'm going to send the Heavenly Bodies after the Rock and Roll Express because they're a proven commodity, and you guys are on double secret probation. I'm going to let you know that right now, and if there's no further action of this type, then you'll be back in good standing with the organization. But you just got to remember, you got to keep your mind where your business is, and you got to listen to what I say. No more black marks on the record, guys. Okay, that's it, and we'll leave it at that for now. Sorry.
All right, let's go to the ring.
All right. So I'm happy Cornette brought up the Kevin Sullivan aspect because I don't know about you, I'd also forgotten about that.
Yeah,
What was that?
yeah, I'd forgotten that too.
Yeah. Um, and so yeah, the Harrises, something is happening. You can just tell, of course, that the Harrises are not happy, but they got to deal with it because, Cornette's the commissioner now.
Yeah, I think I know what happens in the loser leaves town match, but I didn't really think about the commissioner match, and I don't know why. The last thing that I expected was they would actually go with Cornette being the commissioner.
Yep, Cornette is the commissioner here, and it, it's leading to some interesting TV. I must tell you that.
This has been very compelling TV.
Yeah. We'll see if we can get 2 weeks in a row of this. Although, as much as I love JC, I don't think he could put himself on like 10 promos on every episode. Uh,
Challenge. He would take that challenge.
oh, definitely. I mean, if I just gave him a microphone and told him, "Hey, Jim, talk for the next 50 minutes," I might have to count him down at the end because he might, still be mid-steam at that point.
Hmm.
All right. So from here, it's 23 minutes into the show. It's time for our first match. And that's
Yeah,
23 minutes without commercials. So it would have had to been at least 30 minutes into the show. And you thought a Vince Russo booked TNA show was light on the wrestling. But
yeah. But I forgive this one because the stuff that was on the show was actually good.
yes, yes. Plus, like, even if it wasn't that great, it's like a one-time thing. Like, again, we've never seen a show that was just 23 minutes of promos and angles to start the show before. Unless it was like one of those
Right.
shows like when they haven't been doing it much anymore, but they used to do the shows the last show before a big event. They would basically just have Jim Cornette and Phil Rainey recap everything to preview the big show. But not including a show like that. So our first match, it is WWA World Heavyweight Champion Chris Candido versus Robbie Eagle in a baby bonnet return match. Because last week, Tim Horner, the asshole that he is, he cost Chris Candido a match where they had a gentleman's bet that if Candido could beat Robbie Eagle, then Horner would wear a baby bonnet on TV until he won a match. And if Robbie Eagle had won, then Candido would wear the baby bonnet. And due to trickery on behalf of the babyface, Candido now has to wear a baby bonnet on TV until he wins. I noted that Candido did not get introduced as the WWA World Heavyweight Champion, and I didn't even see him with the belt, but I guess he does have the belt for obvious reasons we're about to get into. So I thought that maybe he lost his belt, but Dutch and Cornette talked about it later in the match. They plugged something called the Smoky Mountain Info Connect hotline, where you can find out all the schedule and all the matches, the upcoming live events. It's a local
Did
promos or local number, so I did not call it.
Oh, that's a shame. Can we call it on the show? Can
Uh,
we dial out on Zoom?
oh well, uh, if we were using, oh, I guess we are using Zoom, but no, we can't dial out on Zoom. And again, it's a local phone number, so I'm not gonna call it and call some poor schmuck down in Morristown, Tennessee, and ask them when the next show in Knoxville is gonna be.
Somebody has to have done that to them before, though, right?
Oh, I'm sure. Now, I wrote this before, obviously before I saw the rest of the show, because I'm not Nostradamus or anything. I wrote Candido dominated this match, but Robbie Eagle apparently thinks he's Bobby Blaze and kept kicking out. Tim Horner then came out and put on Candido's boa and title belt because Horner can't win a title belt on his own. So Candido chased him around the ring and got counted out. So yeah, or at least I compared it to the Brian Pillman angle in the WWF where he has to wear a dress every week while wrestling people who never win matches, and Goldust keeps screwing him out of it. So yeah, it's in a similar vein here. We're just waiting now for the match where uh, Chris Candido gets to sleep with Tim Horner's wife for 30 days as um, as a reward for winning a match.
I uh I think the cuckoldry is more likely to go in the other direction, but I don't know. I don't know what
Oh
Tim
God.
Horner's preferences are.
Oh, we know what Tim Horner's preferences are. Pam Lawson. Oh my God,
Love you, Chris.
Chris
So
Candido,
sorry.
Chris Candido gets to sleep with Pam Lawson for 30 days.
Oh,
Poor Candido.
I bet he was never with anybody but her.
And I bet that she was with everybody in the locker room but him.
Hmm.
All right, so Chris Candido, he's from Jersey, and he should not be treated this way. In fact, he's going to talk to Jim Cornette about that.
Blonde, come on in here, come on in here. Chris, I can't.
You're the commissioner. Do something. He stole my 2 weeks in a row. This happened to me. I don't gotta wear this. I'm from Jersey. For Christ's sake, can't you help me?
Chris, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you don't ever have to wear this any longer than absolutely necessary. Oh, don't cry. I mean, he's not crying, fans. He's not crying. Go on back and I'll take care of everything. Let's go to a commercial. Or
Okay, we'll be right back.
Oh, that was great. It was 30 seconds, but it was fucking great.
Candido is so great at just everything.
I haven't looked it up, but I'm sure Chris Candido did not win Best Gimmick in the Observer this year. He really should have. Nothing can ever happen to him because he's from Jersey. Damn it. And then and then Cornette's like, "Oh, please don't cry." I'm like, "Oh no, he's not crying, folks. He's not crying."
It was
And
so good, so good.
you gotta love professional wrestling sometimes.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of such, let's go to Down and Dirty with Dutch because that 4 or 5 minutes of wrestling, that is too fucking much here. So let's go to Down and Dirty with Dutch with The Rock and his partner Roll Express.
Everybody, welcome to Down and Dirty with Dutch. I'm Dr. Dutch Mantell, and you're not. Right now, my special guest on Down and Dirty, right here on Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the newly acquired Smoky Mountain heavyweight champions, The Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. And I have to say it was a long uphill battle. You climbed the mountain, but now the question remains is how long do you think, Ricky, you can hang on to these belts?
Well, Dutch, first of all, I'd like to say a little something. You know, since Jimmy Cornette took over being commissioner, I see you got your nice tuxedo on. Hadn't changed your style a bit, has he? What's that brown on your nose there, Dutch? Huh? But let me tell you one thing. Now, the Bruise Brothers, we have wrestled many tag teams across the country. And I gotta say, my head is off to them because they are one of the toughest tag teams that Robert and I has ever faced. But when your back's against the wall and you got something to fight for, Dutch Mantel, this right here's what you get. I'm talking, we proved one more time that we were the better tag team. All right? Now, it's a little something that happened, though, I feel kind of bad about. And if Scott Armstrong's in the back, Scott, if you're watching, I want you to come out here for a minute because you see these guys had title matches with the Bruise Brothers. All right. To me, they are one of the #1 contenders in the world, bar none. So I'd like for Scott to come up here and ring for a second. Here he comes.
Well, we're being joined at ringside, fans, by Scott Armstrong, but at the request of Ricky Morton. Ricky, he's out here now.
You know, you had a match signed with the Bruise Brothers. So Robert and I, we got all the things that you helped us do, we helped you do. We think that you guys should be the #1 contenders to get the first title shot at the belts. All right?
I appreciate that. You know, Dutch, the day after they won the titles, everybody knew that Steve and myself had title shots against the Bruise Brothers. And the day before we were supposed to have our first title shot, lo and behold, the Rock and Roll Express won the belts. And I'm happy for them. I'm tickled to death that they won. If Steve and myself couldn't have them, I'd just soon these boys have them. But I want to say one thing. We got some matches upcoming, and I appreciate you guys giving us the title shot. Scott and Steve Armstrong will be more than happy to accept it. Thank you very much.
Scott,
Wait a minute, before you guys go.
Wait a minute, I'm not through yet, okay? Let me say something. I know Jimmy Cornette's watching you trying to get your job over, but let me tell you one thing, Scott. After all's over in the ring, I hope that we can walk out of the ring shaking hands and make the best team win, and I hope it's me and Robert. All right?
Hey, I can appreciate that, and those belts sure are pretty, and I hope it's me and Steve, but I can appreciate it.
Okay, so you guys saying you're going to wrestle a clean match, back and forth, a scientific encounter? Is that what you're saying?
What do you think, Dutch?
He said we ain't got to worry about Cornette and nobody else jumping in.
Okay, that's what you're saying, right?
That's what we're saying.
Oh, come on, guys. Don't give me that. If these belts are worth fighting for, you're not going to just go in there and wrestle scientifically. I'm not going to believe that.
Well, Dutch, some people don't think like you. See, your opinion's like by behind. Everybody's got one, all right?
There you heard it, fans. Don't go away. We'll be back in 120 seconds.
Okay. This is now the second time I watched that, and I finally realized Ricky Morton didn't say Europeans are like behind. Everyone's got one.
It took me a minute to what the
It is not Europeans. Your opinions. Poor Ricky not being able to enunciate. So if I didn't know any better, and spoiler alert, I do, I would think they were turning one of these two teams heel.
I just thought that they were gonna have a couple of babyface matches.
Yeah, but the
Just
way
to kind of
the way the promo went, I'm like, okay, it's like such they're building something up here, but they're not, you know.
By the way, I don't know if Steve was injured or had something going on. He wasn't at any of the house shows that weekend either.
God damn it, Steve Armstrong. The hell's the matter with you? We're trying to give you a tag team title match, and you're not even showing up. We might as well turn your brother into a fucking referee or something.
I mean, we have absolutely no idea where he was. He could have had the flu. He could have been getting married. He could have fucking a third thing.
He could have been Lance Cassidy in the WWF. Or was that Scott Armstrong? Was it Scott or Steve that was Lance Cassidy?
No, that was Steve. No, it fucking does Scott look like he could pull off being named Lance Cassidy?
No, he looks more like he'd pull off being Dixie Dynamite and then lose all of his charisma and his promo skills when he took the mask off.
All the charisma was in the sock on his face.
Yes, it was. I know I keep saying this, but like it is so weird that this is the same guy because he had so much fucking personality as Dixie Dynamite, even with the stupid Confederate flag gimmick and all that shit. It's like, but what the hell happened to it? It's like he lost his confidence when he lost his mask.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The arguments about the Confederate symbolism aside, like that really was just like a perfect kind of opening match act for this time and place.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe Scott just never had the confidence to be Steve Armstrong or Scott Armstrong.
Yeah. I bet he didn't have the confidence to be Steve Armstrong either.
No, he's not that handsome.
By the way, best gimmick in the Wrestling Observer Awards in 1993, The Undertaker, followed by heel
Huh.
Doink the Clown. The
Okay,
top mhm,
heel doink is valid. Heel doink was great.
1993 Undertaker, not so much.
No, and he's like, okay, I've watched like almost all of 1993 WWF. I've watched from like the beginning of the year to SummerSlam, at least like Raw and all the pay-per-views. And he hasn't done a lot other than like have bad matches with Giant Gonzalez and send creepy funeral wreaths to Mr. Hughes that creeped him out while he was wrestling.
Which made Mr. Hughes quit the WWF. Um, but the highest ranked Smoky Mountain feud or Smoky Mountain gimmick was Tammy Fytch at in fifth place, which yeah, that was a hell of a gimmick. Tammy
Is
Fytch.
her gimmick the woman who filed the sexual discrimination lawsuit against Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
Unfortunately, Dave did not elaborate. Um, but Crybaby Chris Candido is an honorable mention, but he's behind Yokozuna, Razor Ramon, and I swear I'm sure this is a Mexican gimmick because it sounds like it come from a Mexican promotion. The Skinheads.
Uh, I don't know. That could be that could be some like Japanese garbage promotion. That could be some fucking Southern Shindy. I don't know. I don't know who that is.
I assume Mexicans because I mean, wasn't it a Mexican promotion that had a Taliban gimmick in the mid 2000s?
Yeah, probably.
By the way, one after Chris Candido was, and this is Dave. This is I know I imagine it's a Japanese accent thing, much like when he used to call Jushin Liger Jushin Riger in 1990, which yeah. Um, Dr. Looser.
Yeah, yeah. That's
What
funny. I didn't even put that together. I don't know where I read. I just read Dr. Looser the other day in some kind of context. I must have been looking at something from 1993 in the Observer,
by
and
the
I didn't even connect. Like, oh yeah, they meant that was Dr. Luther.
by the way, next up after Dr. Looser, the in best gimmick was the FMW exploding ring. Uh, I don't know what those eight people were thinking who voted for the exploding ring as best gimmick.
Isn't it crazy that of all people, Dr. Luther is like still on TV?
Ish.
Or what? He was still on TV until like August.
Yes. All right. So after all that, believe it or not, we have a match. And it's Tracy Smothers versus a man.
My new favorite jobber, Gator McAllister from Marsh Island, Louisiana. At first, I said he looks like the Timu version of Shield Seth Rollins. And then I got a better look at him, and his hair is actually even worse than that. He has like a dark hair buzz cut, but then like a very prominent blonde skunk tail down the back of his head.
When when I just saw him from the back, I thought it was Ian Rotten. But no, this is a guy who was trained by Dutch Mantel. This is I don't know if this was his actual first match, but this is his first match that's listed on Cage Match. Um, and for a guy who, if not his first match, is in his very early going, and he wasn't awful, he was definitely a TV jobber. And Tracy definitely beat him with the jaw jacker. And actually, the reason why I was looking up who trained him because I'm like, oh my God, is this one of the guys Horner trained?
You know, I'm sure that he probably drove Dutch to the town and got
Probably.
$25 as a favor.
Well,
Um,
especially because Dutch would ride in with Caudle normally, and Caudle wasn't
yeah.
on this show, and I imagine he's probably not on the other two shows of this taping either.
Yeah, that makes sense. And according to Cage Match, Gator McAllister was still working Southern Indies as late as like 2017. So
I,
good for him.
I wrote Gator McAllister. Gator McAllister is this man's
It's
name.
fucking phenomenal name.
Oh man, whatever happened to Juicy Johnny?
Oh my God. What if Gator McAllister and Juicy Johnny formed a tag team? The Juicy Gators.
In 2025, they should win every tag team title in wrestling. Every tag team title in wrestling.
Absolutely.
Do you
The
remember
Juicy
Austin?
Gators.
Do you remember Austin Aries' Mark gimmick where he would go win every indie company's title belt? I don't think he ever lost any of them. That
Yeah,
that's that's what the Juicy Gator should do, except they'd be good at it. And keep in mind
absolutely.
our experience of knowing the Juicy Gators so far is three Juicy Johnny matches and one Gator McAllister match.
Well, we get two more Gator McAllister matches.
Yes, so we'll see if he's worthy of being the partner of Juicy Johnny. Oh God! So Tracy Smothers is going to cut a promo because yes, believe it or not, Jim Cornette does not cut every promo on this show. Let's go to Tracy Smothers right now.
Tracy Smothers returning back to Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And Tracy, I got one question to ask for you. I am an objective journalist. I'm looking very sharp today because we do have a new commissioner. But let me ask you one thing. How is your knee?
My knee's holding up real good, and it feels great to be back in the South. My pa always told me, Dutch Mantel, he said, if you want to catch a snake, you get a mongoose. And I got the meanest mongoose around that all the people know. Sensational Sherry Martel is coming to Smoky Mountain Wrestling to be in my corner. Tammy Witch, she's forgot more dirty tricks than you'll ever know. And she's got a few choice words for you in Prima Donna Primetime. I think we got to interview her.
Okay, let's listen to that right now.
Of all the things I've ever been so excited about in my life is coming to the Parade of Champions. And yes, I got a telephone call from that wild-eyed Southern boy, Tracy Smothers, telling me that he was having a little problem with a little Mr. Brian Lee and the little witch that he has hanging out with him calling Miss Tammy Fytch. Well, I tell you what, Miss Fytch, there's not another woman in the world that loves to get in trouble as much as I do. There's not another woman in the world that would love to stand by the side of wild-eyed Southern boy as much as I would. So I'll tell you what, Miss Fytch, you set your little runt right there at ringside. You dress in all your little pretty clothes. But remember one thing, I ain't been mean. And there's nothing that I won't do to stand by my friend in need.
Well, there you heard it, fans. Sensational Sherry Martel with some choice words for Primetime Brian Lee and Tammy Fytch. Tracy, what do you got to say about it?
I know one thing for a fact. That sensational Sherry, she's never been a loss for words, and she's doggone sure going to protect her wild-eyed Southern boy. Now, a lot of people's come to me and they said, Trace, what are you going to do, man? This white boy's coming in. This white boy's interfering on your matches. Dirty white boy, I haven't forgot about you. I'll get to you later. Brian Lee, you've got the belt that I own, that I never really lost. It always did take two of you to whip one on me. I know Sensational Sherry's going to hold up her part, and she's going to beat that Tammy Fytch to a bloody pulp, and she doggone sure deserves it. Brian, it's me and you. Pretty boy, prima donna, all the nicknames you got. All the talking, all the trash you do. I'm looking right in this camera. I'm not going east. I'm not going west. I'm coming north and south. And by the good grace of God, with Sensational Sherry in my corner, I'm going to be the next Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion for a third time.
Okay, fans, don't go away. We'll be right back with more exciting Smoky Mountain Wrestling action. Stay tuned.
The good old Southern boy. Ah, shucks. Don't you want to take him home to meet your grandparents?
If you're gonna fight a snake, get a mongoose.
Yes. Um, but by the way, how many times do you think they had to retake that sensational Sherry promo so she got all the names right for Tammy Sitch and not call her a bitch?
She was Sherry was living some kind of lifestyle at the moment, I believe.
Yes, yes. And she's only out of the WWF for like a month at this point too. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. I do love that his knee's holding up, but isn't it great to be back in the South? Now, in storyline, why is he happy to be back in the South? Where the fuck did he go? We know where he went in real
Yeah.
life because apparently wrestling at All Japan helps your knee out. But, in this case, what the hell is he coming back to the South for?
There was a really badass six-man tag on the last All Japan TV that I watched that had Tracy in it. Let's see what it was.
Was
Masawa, Kobashi, and Kikuchi against Steve Williams, Joel Deaton, and Tracy Smothers at a
was that the
badass
one?
match.
Was that the one you sent me the video of?
Yes,
Where
yes.
poor Dr. Death, I don't know what the hell got up his ass, but he was needing to be held back before the match even began.
Okay, he and Kobashi fucking have decided that they hate each other, and I support it. I love it.
As a shoot or a work?
No, as a work, I think they're gonna have a like a triple crown number one contenders match in the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
I, well, so Chris Candido's been on the show now for about 4 months, maybe 5 months. And ever since he's been here, he's been the WWA World Heavyweight Champion. And we have made a point throughout the last 4 or 5 months to continually say that Smoky Mountain Wrestling does not recognize the WWA World Heavyweight Championship. Well, because we've had too much wrestling on this show already, we're going to go to another promo and it's going to be Bobby Blaze. And you might be wondering why we're randomly bringing up Chris Candido's WWE World Heavyweight title belt. But yeah, let's go to Bobby Blaze right now, who's got a shiny belt around his waist.
Me here at ringside here at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Bobby Blaze. And Bobby, I just have to ask you, what the hell are you doing with that belt? What is that?
This is the U.S. Junior Heavyweight Championship belt, Dutch.
Well, where did it come from?
They had a big tournament in Columbus, Ohio. Big Time Championship Wrestling had a tournament, invited talent from all over the country. And you know I've been doing real good here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling and getting a lot of recognition. And they invited me up, and I put my mind to it, put my nose to the grind. They had a lot of top competition, Bobby and Jackie Fulton, a lot of other guys. And I went up there, and I won this belt right here, the U.S. Junior U.S. Championship.
So you are right now the reigning United States Junior Heavyweight Champion, and you won it in a tournament. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct, Dutch. I won this in a tournament, and I want everyone to know, not only am I going to be defending this title in Smoky Mountain, but...
Wait a minute, we're joined here by the Suicide Blonde Chris Candido.
Hold on a second. You're going to be defending your title where? In Smoky Mountain Wrestling? Dutch, are you telling me Smoky Mountain Wrestling is going to recognize that ugly piece of junk over my beautiful World Heavyweight Championship belt? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Is that what you're trying to say?
Not only am I going to defend it here, I'm going to defend it all over the United States of America with pride.
All right, hold on a second. I know about all the people that you beat for that belt in that tournament. Bobby and Jackie Fulton, Jushin Liger, J.R. Benson, all those great people. Yeah, I know about that. But nobody ever asked me about the people I beat for my belt. Hey, you know what? You think you're some great champion? You want a shot at the real world champion, huh? You want a title shot against my belt? No? What? What are you talking about? No. Look at my belt compared to that ugly piece of garbage. What are you talking about? No. Are you out of your mind?
You're saying you don't want a shot at the WWA Heavyweight title?
No, Dutch. If you took that belt right there with an old aluminum can from the side of the road, you might be able to get 39 cents down at a recycling center.
You're talking about the championship of the world.
So you don't want to...
Hey, don't start crying and don't get all hot on me. Listen, I'm defending this not only in Smoky Mountain, but all over the USA. All you have to do is sign a contract, and I'll defend my belt against you.
You know, I'll sign that contract not because I want to win that piece of garbage, just so I can take it and I can throw it in the river just where it belongs. I'll sign that contract.
All right, fans. You heard it right here. A little controversy development. Let's go to the ring right now.
So, Bobby Blaze is now the U.S. Junior Heavyweight Champion, having won the belt in Columbus, Georgia. I hear the second half of the bracket was held in Rio de Janeiro. And hey, Chris Candido has a point. And it's not just the one on top of his head. He's claimed to be the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Smoky Mountain does not recognize it, does not allow him to defend the WWE World Heavyweight title. But Bobby Blaze shows up one week, announces he's the U.S. Junior Heavyweight Champion. And like, oh yeah, you can defend that title here on Smoky Mountain. We're going to recognize that belt here on Smoky Mountain every week.
At I I would pay all the money to see Bobby Blaze versus Jushin Liger, especially in 1993.
A green rookie Bobby Blaze versus Jushin Liger. I guess, you know. Um,
I mean,
it,
was Bobby Blaze ever that much better than he is now?
I'd say, anybody is with experience. I'm not saying Bobby Blaze is a great junior heavyweight or anything, but I apparently J.R. Benson, by the way, is the name of a wrestling fan in California who would come down for Fan Week, in case
Oh,
you're
that's
curious.
funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And the poor Fantastics, they haven't been on TV in over a year, and they got beaten in an imaginary tournament in Columbus, Georgia.
I thought this. I heard Columbus. I'm sorry, coughing. My brain just autofilled Ohio. Did they say Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay, I believe you.
They did not get Frankie Williams from Columbus, Ohio. Instead, it was Columbus, Georgia.
Probably wasn't available.
If it wasn't for that Piper's Pit, would anybody know who Frankie Williams was and that he was from Columbus, Ohio?
Do not believe. No.
Yes. Oh, you are from Columbus, Ohio. Tell me, have you ever lost a match in Columbus, Ohio? I've never lost a match in Columbus, Ohio. For Frankie Williams and his poor win-loss record in Columbus, Ohio.
Fortunate.
Yes. Um, so the joke is, of course, that Candido is, got the ugliest title belt in the history of wrestling, and he's calling Bobby Blaze's belt ugly. I like that title belt. I don't know why. I don't. It feels like this. And spoiler alert: this junior heavyweight title does not last long, so I don't know what the point of it really was. Um, but yeah, I mean, they brought they didn't make money for a TV title belt, but they spent money on a U.S. junior heavyweight title belt, and yeah, they don't make money on the TV title either. Um, but
Wait for this belt.
yeah. Well, then we get our main event because we're after talking about 83 promos already, we're already at our main event. It is our Beat the Champ TV champion Jimmy Del Rey versus Rock and Roll Robert Gibson. And yeah, again, not very heavy on the wrestling action this week. This match went like 4 minutes. Jimmy misses the poon salt. Dr. Tom interfered and then tried to get in the ring, but Mark Curtis stopped him from getting in the ring. And while he was stopping him, Ricky Morton rolled in and they gave Jimmy Del Rey the double drop kick. And Robert Gibson picked up the win. And Robert Gibson is your new Beat the Champ TV champion.
Good for him.
Yes. It's about
That's pretty good.
time. It's about time that he got some individual recognition. And he's a double champion, double gold.
I know. Look at that. Well, single gold and a what is what's the TV title going to be represented by now? Now that it's not Jimmy Del
Um,
Rey's stuffed animal.
oh God. Um, Robert Gibson's lazy eye.
I was gonna say it, but I was like, is that too shitty to say? And then you just went for it.
I've been telling a lot of bad jokes lately. Um,
Oh, you know what? If I ever reach that point and I have to write a suicide note, I'm just gonna write sorry for all the bad jokes.
don't don't apologize for bad jokes. Bad jokes are great.
Uh,
Oh my God, I'm looking for a bad joke I told yesterday. and I'm having trouble finding it. Um, oh, so whatchamacallit, I was talking to a friend who was talking about how Liv Morgan was being pushed as such a dominant women's champion, and how they didn't push Jake Roberts or Ted DiBiase as killers because that wasn't their gimmick. And I said, and they stopped pushing Chris Benoit for being a killer.
Jesus.
Yes. I have issues, right? It's not just you.
I've n- I've noticed. That's why we're perfect together. We're just complementary kinds of fucked up.
Exactly. Well, because we've had too much pesky wrestling on this show, we're gonna go to a show closing promo with the Dirty White Boy, and of course, a continuation of my favorite storyline in Smoky Mountain history. Let's go to Dutch.
Okay, fans, joining me here at the broadcast booth here at Smoky Mountain, none other than the Dirty White Boy. And what I'd like to ask you right now is what's going on in the life of the Dirty White Boy for all the fans out there?
Well, what's going on in my life right now is I cannot find Ron Wright. I don't know where he's at. He's been missing for 3 days. I don't even know if he's got his pills. He could be laying a ditch dead someplace. You know, the man's an invalid. I have no idea where Ron is. And Dutch, do you know?
I have not seen Ron Wright, but if I had, I would certainly let you know if I'd seen him.
Well, I know
you're concerned about him, in other words.
Yes, I'm very concerned. I haven't seen the man in 3 days. He always calls me every day. I always make sure he's got his medicine, and I'm just worried about the man. I don't know where he is, what's going on with him, or anything. You know what? Where the hell has he been?
You know, lately, Brian and I have been a little worried about Ronnie living all by himself. So the two of us have decided to let him move in with us so he can get all of his medication on time and he can get his neck rubs when he needs them and we can take good care of him.
So you're saying you're taking care of Mr. Wright? Is it?
That's right, we're taking perfectly good care
That's
of him.
exactly what we're saying, Dutch. And White Boy, you don't worry about the $20,000. You don't worry about Ron, because the next time I step in the ring with Tracy Smothers, I'm taking him out once and for all. And Sherry Martell, you're not going to make any difference because you'll never get to my manager.
Brian, please don't let her near me because she'll give me like cooties or some other disease or something.
Honey, have I ever let you down?
No. Oh, wait a minute, Ronnie. It's time for your pill. Let's go, okay?
We got to go.
All right. Now you know where he is, White Boy. Any final comments? Obviously.
I don't like this one bit.
Okay, fans, that's it right now. Next week.
All right. So we know where Mr. Ron Wright is. Tammy Fytch and Primetime Brian Lee moved Mr. Wright into their home to help him take his medication and all that fun stuff.
I'm worried for Mr. Ron Wright. I think they're taking advantage of him.
I mean that's pretty much on the nose there because hey, Mr. Wright had that $20,000 insurance policy, and that he might have more money, and they're taking advantage of the poor guy, our legendary pro wrestler, Mr. Ron Wright. I gotta say,
I
I love the storyline, and I know where it's going, and it's just like it is just fucking fantastic.
have no real idea where this is going.
Yep. Well, sit back and enjoy. Maybe you won't enjoy the storyline as much as uh I do. And I love that White Boy, who's this total dickhead, ever since we've met him back in the first couple episodes of Smoky Mountain. White Boy is just this total dickhead heel who has no redeeming qualities, and he's got a soft spot for Mr. Ron Wright. And it plays up the real life thing because in real life, Dirty White Boy, he idolized Ron Wright as a child. You know,
Yeah.
so we're gonna see where this is going here. So 86 down, 114 to go. This was definitely a very unique episode. I, you know, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I guess I don't like I said, we can't have a show like this every week, but as a standalone show, kind of like last night's Raw, it worked.
Yeah, wonder what the next couple of weeks are going to be like, and I don't know, and I don't know what's going on, so I'm just it, I'm enjoying seeing like I don't know how they're going to get things back to normal.
Mhm. It's um it's a little wacky. We'll say that. It's a little wacky.
Can't wait.
Yes. So before we go, we like to tell you what else is happening in the world of wrestling because I can tell you September 18th, whatever day this is, 1993, until I'm blue in the face. But telling you what else is happening gives you some context to where you go, hey, I remember that. Is that what was going on at the time? And I say yes. Yes, it was. Bad week for the WWF. Shawn Michaels was suspended for failing a drug test, and then he quit the WWF out of protest before he could be booked to lose the Intercontinental title. And Shawn actually discussed this in his book, his WWE released book in like 2006, 2007. Essentially, like he failed the steroid test and he claimed that he was not taking steroids. And when you looked at him, like in 1993, Shawn Michaels, like, yeah, 94, 95, 96, Shawn Michaels was on a lot of shit. You look at 1993, Shawn Michaels, he's like 240 pounds and pudgy, and like he's not, like he's muscular, but he's not, terribly defined. How the hell did he fail a steroid test? Um, but
Hmm.
So they announced on TV that he was stripped of the title and they'd be having a battle royal on September 27th to declare a new champion. Matt Bourne quit the company, which he's doink, but people are not it's of the four quittings that I'm about to talk about, his is the least that they're worried about because he's doink, so they can just put somebody else under the makeup. Like over this weekend, Steve Lombardi was Doink the Clown. And
Yeah.
then the other two, and we'll see how this plays out because I can test that this is not, permanent, at least for right now. The Steiners have quit the WWF as well. Um,
Huh.
yeah, Scott
Interesting.
Steiner. Yeah, Scott Steiner has been suspended for 8 weeks for unknown reasons, and people don't know if the Steiners will be back. And spoiler alert, the suspension does not last 8 weeks.
Interesting that.
Yes. The NWA and WCW had negotiated an out-of-court settlement over the NWA World Title that WCW pulled out of. And so we'll see what happens there as we led
Oh,
in as we led into the WCW Fall Brawl pay-per-view, which was considered the worst show of 1993. And speaking of the Observer Awards, wins the 1993 Worst Major Event pay-per-view. To give
oh,
you
that's exciting. I'm coming up to it in like a couple of weeks.
Well, to give you an idea, Ricky Steamboat and Lord Steven Regal have a 17-minute match. And I want you to picture in your head Ricky Steamboat versus Steven Regal for 17 minutes. That
Okay.
sounds pretty fucking good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It was a 1 3/4 star match.
Jeez.
And to,
That's
to,
rough.
to make it worse, that was the second highest rated match on the show.
Oh God, that's horrible.
Yes. The
So I
yeah, go ahead.
uh when I drive through the city, which I try to avoid as much as possible, but I just there's certain places that I just think about like the stuff that happened there, and I keep lately because I knew it was coming up. I keep thinking that Fall Brawl was in Houston. It was
Yes,
at
it was. The the
I think at the
the
time it was the Astro Arena.
yes.
Now it's the NRG Arena. I saw Louis C.K. there one time.
Cool. Cool. Could you imagine a wrestling show in that arena?
Yeah, it was, it was
Okay.
fine to learn. It's on like It's on the same lot as the Astrodome and the NRG Stadium.
Okay.
And
Um,
whenever I drive past the George R. Brown Convention Center, I think that's where Jerry Lynn won the Ring of Honor World Title. I don't know why that's what I think of.
hey, yeah.
And then whenever I drive past Lakewood Church, it just breaks my heart because that used to be the Houston Summit.
Mm. I think we talked about that the Houston Summit got bought by a church.
It's Joel Osteen's church.
Yeah. Um, and you don't drive by Reliance Stadium or whatever it's called these days and think that's where Sim Snuka dropped the Undertaker on his head.
Have not thought of that. That's also a thing that happened there. Yeah, no, I'm usually just thinking about like I don't know because it's weird because the stadium, like the NRG Stadium and the Astrodome, are like side by side, and it's like nobody can figure out what to do with the Astrodome, but nobody will let them tear it down, so it's just fucking there, and it's just this big ass area in like the middle of fucking Houston that's got these two stadiums side by side and one huge lot, and also the arena that's also right there.
By the way, elsewhere on the Fall Brawl show, I mentioned the opener was a 1 3/4 star match. The next five matches included Charlie Norris, Big Sky, Ice Train, David Sullivan, and Yoshi Kwan.
So right before we recorded this show, I watched the September 4th, 1993 episode of WCW Saturday Night, and they did the Fall Ball Control Center, and they were hyping the card, and we added some more matches, and it was the fucking Ice Train match and like the Charlie Norris match, and I'm like, they just made this show sound fucking horrendous.
Oh, yes. And keep in mind, some of the people that I mentioned, they were involved in matches featuring Cactus Jack, Arn Anderson, Too Cold Scorpio, Paul Orndorff, and the Nasty Boys. People who, like, whether or not they're the greatest workers of all time, people who can have good matches and have a history of having good matches.
Yeah.
And this was not the show.
By
Um,
the way, only marginally related, but watching this old stuff has given me the opportunity to reassess a lot of people that I sort of had, they weren't very good ideas about. And
mhm.
so that like Mr. Hughes fucking sucked. Like there's been no like my reassessment evaluated the original assessment, but others like the Nasty Boys were good. Why did I
Yeah,
think the Nasty Boys were bad for years?
because they did have a lot of bad matches, but they also had a lot of good matches. And like, you get them in there with some teams like the Steiners or Harlem Heat, and they're gonna have some pretty damn good matches. But you're gonna see some bad ones coming up if you
Yeah.
keep going through this WCW
Yeah.
phase years. Um,
There there is a six-man tag on the fifth or sixth episode of Raw. It's like Tatanka and the Nasty Boys against Shawn Michaels and the Beverly Brothers. That's a
mhm.
fucking banger.
Oh yeah. And it's not just because Shawn Michaels worked for six people.
No, no,
Yeah.
the Nasties were good.
Yeah. By the way, the 1991 War Games match was 5 stars in the Observer. The 1992 War Games match was 5 stars in the Observer. The 1993 War Games match, 1 star.
Jeez.
And by the way, this is a tip off for your other podcast. This weekend, ECW held their Ultra Clash 93 show, which is the first show by new booker Paul Heyman.
And our review of that show dropped on New Year's Eve and is available right now at ohmygodcast.com and wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.
Complete with the debut of the Public Enemy.
Indeed. And what a debut it was.
All right. So since we're already into podcast plugs, let's start wrapping things up here. OhMyGodCast.com. Anything else you want to plug?
That's all I got going on, really.
All right. Allegedly, I'm going to be on the Angry Marks podcast tonight talking about Raw because Stevie J emailed me apparently at the wrong time, and I somehow agreed to that bullshit. But check that out. Thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.